We are learning. Thank you, thank you. We are learning. We are starting today a new Masechta, new tractate, Mishna Gittin. So it is Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. Okay, now, the Torah talks about that this, close to the Torah, Parshas Kiseitze, talks about divorce. A person can divorce his wife and the marriage by divorcing her through a get. That's what the Mishnah calls it, through a sefer krisos, a bill of divorce. And that bill of divorce has to go from the husband, delivered from the husband to the wife. And the halacha is, what we're going to be talking about now from our Mishnah is that transfer of the bill of divorce, what we call the get, from the husband to the wife, does not have to be done only by the husband. It can be done by his shliach, by his agent, right? An agent, agent can act in his place, and he can deliver the get, he can give her the get, which would now make her divorced. But now the Mishnah says that the sages instituted a certain law under certain circumstances when an agent delivers the get. So the Mishnah reads, Hamevi get memedinas hayam. If someone delivers a get, he brings a get from Medinas Hayam. Literally translated, Medinas Hayam means the country of the sea. It means overseas, but it really means outside of Eretz Yisrael. That's what it really means. It means Chutz La'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael. And we'll see different variations. But if you bring from Medinas Hayam, which means from outside of Eretz Yisrael, the Batanura says, Kol chutz la'aretz kari medinas hayam. Anything outside of Eretz Yisrael is called overseas. If somebody brings a get from overseas, that means the husband is, let's just say, he's somewhere outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he is now sending the get to his wife in Eretz Yisrael. Sarech shayoyim b'fanai nechtav. That shliach has to make the following declaration. B'fanai nechtav, in front of me it was written. B'fanai nechtav, in front of me it was signed. Now every get, like any other document, needs to have witnesses that sign onto it to say that this is valid. It's not a forgery. They are testifying that this get was written with the consent of the husband. It's not a forge. It's a legitimate get. So that's what every get has to have. So this shliach declares, in front of me it was written, and in front of me it was signed. He has to be able to say that he saw it. He saw it being written, he saw it being signed. Why? Why is it so important for him to do that? So the explanation it's giving is the following. If a husband shows up, let's say, a get was given, or a get once is to be given to his wife, or whatever it was given, and a husband comes and he wasn't there. He sent it with an agent, he wasn't there. And he walks in and he says, it's a forgery. I never sent it. Never sent it. Okay, never sent it. All right. So his claim that it's a forgery really now creates an obligation on the wife to authenticate it. She's got to authenticate it, which means she has to have to get witnesses to say that no, we know it's good. We were there. We signed it. We know it's good. This is our signature. Or actually, if let's say you can get another person who can say, I recognize these signatures. I know it's these people's signatures. But you're authenticating the signatures. You're not saying they were forged. And that's what she's going to need to do. She's going to need to find witnesses to do that. Otherwise, we can't let her rely on her get to remarry. So in order for women not to get... Now, the thing is like this. If he's outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he's sending get to Eretz Yisrael, so if the husband now arrives in Eretz Yisrael and says it was a forgery, okay, that means where they got to find the witnesses from? The witnesses aren't going to be local. They're back there in wherever it was, okay, wherever it was wherever they made the get. And it's not like in those days, or in general. I mean, there wasn't a lot of going back and forth necessarily between outside of Eretz Yisrael and inside of Eretz Yisrael. And because of that lack of transportation, that lack of people going from one place from outside Israel to Eretz Yisrael, she's going to have a hard time trying to authenticate that get, because she's going to have to find those people or someone from there that knows them, and they're not coming to Eretz Yisrael so fast. So in order that a woman shouldn't get stuck, if that were to happen, the Chachamim said that we will rely on the Shliach. If the Shliach says that if the Shliach can authenticate it, he can say, it was done in front of me, I saw them sign, I saw the get being written, I saw them sign it. So then we believe him like the two witnesses themselves. Typically, you need two witnesses to be able to authenticate something that's going to allow a woman to remarry. They're going to say she's not married anymore. But being that the whole idea of the obligation to authenticate if there is a claim against it is a rabbinic law, the rabbi said that in these situations, it's enough for one witness who is the shliach, who is the agent, to authenticate it and say, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. So and now they're going to be now if this is happening within Eretz Yisrael, right? According to this opinion, if it's happening within Eretz Yisrael, you don't got to say it, because within Eretz Yisrael there is movement. People go back and forth. It's not as hard to go ahead and find the people for where it was written. But if it's outside Eretz Yisrael, it's going to be a problem, and therefore the halacha is the shliach, the agent, has to make this declaration. Rabbi Gamliel said, Af hamev min arek min acheger. Even if you bring the get from places called Rekem or El Cheger, these were two towns. They explained here in the notes that these cities were right outside the eastern border of Eretz Yisrael. They weren't far away. Nonetheless, Rabbi Gamliel says the shliach from there has to say b'fanei nechtam. Why? Because again, even although these towns are, I'm just reading here from the notes, although these towns are close to Eretz Yisrael, the people do not go to Eretz Yisrael often. Not a lot of times people from there going to Eretz Yisrael. So again, you're going to run into the problem of having a hard time finding anyone to authenticate the get if need be, and therefore the shliach from there also has to say b'fanei nechtam. He also has to authenticate the get. Has to be able to authenticate the get. Now, Rebbe Lezer says, Afilu mikfar ludim lelud. If you're going from Kafar Ludim, which later translates would be the village of Ludim, to Lud. Sound similar, right? Kfar Ludim to Lud. They have a similar name because they were really close to each other. Now, we haven't had a picture showing in a while, okay? But here you have, this is the situation with Kfar Ludim and Lud. The situation was, to make sure I'm getting it right. Okay, the dark part of Eretz Yisrael, the white part is outside of Eretz Yisrael. So you see here, here's Lud, and here's Kfar Ludim. They're very close to each other. Not only that, it actually, Kfar Ludim finds itself between actually two parts of Eretz Yisrael itself because it's recessed. That part of that board of Eretz Yisrael was recessed. That's where Kfar Ludim was. So you're talking about where you've got these two places that are very close to each other. So much so that the explanation of why Rebbe Lezer says even in that situation you have to say, the shliach has to say that it was written and signed in front of me, is the following. People from Kfar Ludim were often present in Lud because the towns were so close together. And again, written in Kfar Ludim could be easily authenticated in Lud. Nevertheless, Rebbe Lezer holds that the sages instituted a blanket requirement that an agent coming from anywhere outside of Eretz Yisrael must make this declaration. Okay, so it's what we say, loy plug, no distinction. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, even though the reason's not there, the Chachamim said across the board, you're coming from outside of Eretz Yisrael, you have to say, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. Okay. The Chachamim say, a person need not say, in front of me it was written, or in front of me it was signed. Only a person who brings from Medinas Hayam, or a person bringing from Eretz Yisrael to Medinas Hayam. Meaning, you have the case brought in the beginning of the Mishnah was going from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. That's maybe Medinas Hayam, bringing from Medinas Hayam, v'hamelech, or someone who is going from Eretz Yisrael to Medinas Hayam. There too, you're going to have to say b'fanei nechtam because you've got the problem of just as people from overseas are not often present in Eretz Yisrael, people from Eretz Yisrael are not often present overseas. You have the same problem. You're not going to have the people, don't go back and forth between them to be able to authenticate it if needed. And therefore, the The shliach says, in front of me was written, in front of me was signed. So you've got somebody who brings from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, somebody who brings from Eretz Yisrael to outside of Eretz Yisrael, or you bring from one country to another country that are overseas. You need to say again, you have to say in front of me, it was written, in front of me, it was signed. Because again, people from one country going to another country aren't often present in the other countries, and therefore, again, the same reason is going to apply that you need the shliach to authenticate it, because it's going to be hard to find people from where it was written to where it was brought. So the Chachamim, just keeping it, simple right now, the Chachamim are saying that being that the reason for the shliach needing to say this is because it's going to be hard to find edim, witnesses to authenticate it. If the husband comes and claims it's a forgery, it's going to be hard to find people where it was written to where it was given. So that's why the shliach has to say this. So the Chachamim say that's going to apply from Eretz Yisrael to outside of from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, or from Eretz Yisrael to outside of Eretz Yisrael, or even outside of Eretz Yisrael from one place to another. In all these situations, you don't have the people going back and forth, and therefore it's the shliach who will authenticate the get. And the Mishnah concludes, Shimon Gamliel says, even one who brings a get from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction in the same town must say, now what's the story with these jurisdictions? So the Bartanur explains, these are areas within the same town that are ruled by different governors who do not allow people to cross easily from one district to another. Since it will likely be difficult to find witnesses to testify to the authenticity of a get that comes from the other district, the agent who brings such a get must authenticate it by making the declaration. So again, you're in the same city, right? And it sounds to me like it's not as bad as like different countries outside of Eretz Yisrael or Eretz Yisrael to outside of Eretz Yisrael, vice versa. You're in the same town, but it's not easy to go from one side to the other side. The governors of each town aren't getting along. They don't allow people to cross easily, and therefore that will create a difficulty in being able to authenticate the get with witnesses. And therefore, here too, Rabbi Gamliel says, the Chachamim said, that the agent has to say, B'fanei nechtam. But Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is taking it a step further in the sense that it's the same town, which probably means that there is people going back and forth. It's not as bad as other places, but difficult enough that Rabbi Gamliel, difficult enough that the governors don't allow the people to easily go from one part to the other. That makes it difficult enough for the Chachamim, for Rabbi Shimon Gamliel to hold that the shliach has to, in that case, also say b'fanei nachtam, that he can authenticate the get. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. The shliach